Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I'll be doing a review of the BMP-2, which is an Era 2 light tank for the Eastern Alliance in the Cold War game mode. And this is the light tank that comes after the BMP-1, and I've already done a review on the BMP-1 on this channel, so if you'd like to watch that if you haven't already, I will link that above for you now. So in terms of today's video and the BMP-2, I'll be telling you all about the tank statistics. I'll be showing you my equipment and commander setup should you wish to set it up as I have. And I have 3 gameplays for you to see how this light tank performs, and I'll be giving you some tips and tricks along the way to tell you how I try to get the most out of this tank. And I'll tell you that it's a lot of fun, this light tank, in my opinion, especially since the BMP line was given the multiple weapons system. It means it's a lot more competitive, and I've been seeing them a lot more on the battlefield. So let's get stuck straight into the statistics of the BMP-2 then. So fully upgraded, you have 2,350 hit points, which is just ever so slightly less, maybe 50 hit points or so less than the sort of cap on hit points on light tanks in Era 2. In terms of the view range, you have 535 meters view range, which isn't the best. I think it's about sort of 10 to 20 meters less than the sort of best view range for light tanks in Era 2, but you can make that work because you do have fantastic concealment. In terms of its mobility, it's good news, as with most tanks in Era 2, or most tanks in Cold War in general, it's a very fast tank. You have a 400 horsepower engine, a 28.57 power to weight ratio, you go 64.4 kilometers an hour forwards, 20.9 kilometers an hour backwards, and your traverse speeds are really nice at 44 degrees a second on the hull and 42 degrees a second on the turret. So in terms of the gun choices and the ammunition choices, as I have said at the start of the video, you have the multiple weapons system with the BMP-2, which means that you can hold down a button, whatever button you have programmed or selected, to switch between the ammunition choices, and you can switch between them and they reload independently. You don't have to fire one and then wait for the other one to reload as you select it. They reload while you're using the other ammunition choice, so it's incredibly useful. It improves your DPM massively and means that you have a great sort of firepower and you can fight one-on-one very effectively. You have a 30mm autocannon which fires 200 shots per magazine, and you also have the ability to fire ATGMs. In terms of the 30mm autocannon, like I said, it has 200 shots per magazine and it has 600 rounds in total, meaning you have enough to fire 3 full magazines with this 30mm autocannon. You only do 15 alpha damage per shot with the standard APDS rounds and the premium APF SDS rounds, and you also have terrible penetration at 100mm of penetration on the standard rounds and 170mm of penetration on the premium rounds. As you can see, I carry full premium, and that's just so that I give myself more chance to penetrate more shots, because you do bounce a lot regardless of what ammunition you choose, especially when you're fighting against heavies like I am in the gameplay in the background. If I fire full premium and I fire a lot of it, if I have a good game I make a small profit, and if I have a bad game I make a small deficit. So that's just a choice you'll have to make, but it won't make an awful lot of difference because that penetration is garbage for Era 2. But you can still penetrate quite a few plates if you sort of circle enemies and shoot into the rear of them and that kind of thing. You do have the option to fire HE rounds with this autocannon, but it's only 40mm of penetration for 25 alpha damage, so I think that it's completely pointless to take them. In terms of the shell velocity on the 30mm autocannon, it's actually quite good at 1,120 meters a second on the standard rounds and 1,280 on the APF SDS rounds, so that's the premium rounds. You have a base DPM of 3,514, which is actually really good, but bear in mind that is if you penetrate every single round, and you can be rest assured that you probably won't do that, so don't worry if you don't penetrate every round. With that garbage penetration, you probably won't penetrate even half of them a lot of the time. But because you fire so rapidly, it does mean that if you hit a module and they repair it and you hit it again, you are likely to damage it, and I've set a lot of tanks on fire using this 30mm autocannon. The base reload for a full magazine is 29.5 seconds, and the aim time is 1.9 seconds on this 30mm autocannon, so that's actually quite nice. The accuracy isn't great at 0.37 seconds, 0.37 I should say, but bear in mind that you can improve that with your commander and equipment setup. In terms of the gun depression and elevation, you only have 5 degrees of gun depression, which can be quite frustrating on some ridgelines, but you do have a whopping 74 degrees of gun elevation if you want to fire out all the birds that are flying in the sky. And like I said, you carry 600 rounds, which means that you can fire 3 full magazines of this 30mm autocannon. So the other choice that you can switch to with the multiple weapon system is the ATGM launcher, which carries 10 rounds of ammunition. These ATGMs do 990 alpha damage with a fantastic penetration of 620mm. The massive downside to these ATGMs is the shell velocity, though, at 208 meters a second, which is very slow. It works better at short to mid ranges, but if you are firing at undetected enemies or enemies that are slower or just sitting in a bush, then you can hit some pretty cool, funky long shots with the ATGMs. And a little tip for everyone, if you didn't know, if a lot of tanks that you're firing at have spaced armor, which is going to happen in Cold War, or the explosive reactive armor, you're going to want to try and avoid shooting that with the ATGMs because you won't deal full damage. So you're going to want to try and dip your shot onto the top of the turret or the top of the hull or the rear of the hull. And if you're doing that and you're facing the front of a tank and you don't want to shoot the front of the tank, you can aim your ATGM a little bit above the tank, maybe 10 meters or so or something like that, and then you sort of dip it down and control the ATGM and land it on top of the tank like an artillery would in World War II, and that means that you're able to penetrate a lot more rounds. But I might do a separate video on that technique in the future, so let me know if you'd like to see that. So in terms of the armour then, it's nothing to shout about. It's between 15mm and 30mm all round. I think the strongest point on the armour, in the armour viewer in the garage is like, I think it's 200mm, which is the log on the back of the tank. So that says it all about the BMP-2 and the BMP line in general. You will be penetrated by pretty much everything, even quite a lot of HE rounds. You are a paper thin tank, so don't rely on the armour at all. Just rely on your concealment and your mobility to avoid getting shot. So that's it for the end of this replay. This is coming to an end as our team are capping out. A little bit unfortunate because I could have done some more damage, but it's still a good game nonetheless. So that's it for that game. With a victory, we finish in the MVP slot. We do make a profit of 84,000 silver. I got my first mark just in this game, I believe, or the game before. I get 3 kills, 7.2k direct damage, and 1,134 assistance damage. So that's it for that game. We'll hop on into the second game, and I'll talk you through my equipment and commander skills, and then a little bit about the gameplay and how I like to play this tank. So we're now into the second replay of the battle, and we're here on El Alamein, and I'll just talk you through my equipment and commander setup, and I'll talk you through how that affects the base statistics of the BMP-2, and then I'll talk you through what I'm doing in the background and try and give you my opinion on this tank, how I play it, and what I think this tank is good for. So, in terms of my equipment, I run Advanced Concealment, Traction System and Advanced Powertrain. I run both of the mobility equipment pieces because although this tank is fairly quick, I want to be able to avoid getting rammed by heavier tanks. I want to get out of situations if I get myself into a sort of sticky situation, and I want to be able to outmaneuver slower tanks and avoid getting shot because you don't have any armour. So I'm just trying to boost that up and get as fast as possible, so I'm able to get into good positions at the start of the battle like I am now, get some view range off for myself and my teammates, and get a bit of an overview of where the enemies are going, so I'm able to plan my line of attack accordingly. And in terms of the concealment, I see a lot of people mentioning that concealment is useless, or concealment skills or concealment equipment is useless in Cold War, and I completely disagree with that. In my opinion, it's still extremely effective, maybe not so as much as in World War II, but you can still use it to get into position, spot the enemies and stay hidden, because not everyone is going to be as aware as the better players are. You're able to use the foliage and hard cover to try and get into positions to spot the enemies out and boost your assistance up and have good games that way. And in terms of my commander, I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, Steady Aim, Rapid Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot and Situational Awareness, boosting my view range and making my concealment and gun handling as good as it can be. So now in terms of my statistics, I have a 555 metres view range with a 196 metres still concealment, and the difference between those two numbers means that I am able to outspot a lot of tanks and get into some good positions and get some good assistance off. In terms of my mobility, I now have a 420 horsepower engine. I go forwards at 85.47 kilometers an hour, backwards at 29.8 kilometers an hour, and my traverse speeds have improved dramatically to 48.4 degrees a second on the hull and 41.72 degrees a second on the turret. And lastly, in terms of the gun and the ATGM, on the 30mm auto cannon, my aim time is 1.82, my accuracy is now 0.33, and the reload is 28.28 seconds for the magazine, with a DPM of 3666. And in terms of my ATGM launcher, the reload is 28.76 seconds for a missile, and the DPM is 2069. So in terms of the gameplay in the background, you can see that I've already racked up 4.2k direct damage and 537 assistance, and you are able to pick up a lot of damage very quickly in this tank and this line in general, and I think it's all down to the multiple weapons system. Because you are able to load both of the ammunition choices independently and switch between them so quickly, it means that you have a fantastic one-on-one capability to fight off other tanks and go in and absolutely decimate an opponent, and then go away, re-stealth, reload, and come back in and rinse and repeat. And that's basically the gameplay or the game style and the play style that I recommend you do in this tank. It's fantastic for finishing off mid-health to quarter health or low health tanks, and you are able to take a massive chunk off full health tanks and then go away, re-stealth, come back in, and it's basically the ultimate predator. So I use the mobility to get into positions to spot the opponents, I use the mobility, the concealment, to get into positions to flank the opponents, find the weaker armoured tanks or find the rear of heavily armoured tanks, and come round and fire an ATGM, put some rounds in with the autocannon, go away, re-stealth, reload if necessary, and come in from a different line of attack and always keep them guessing. And that's kind of my play style. And as you can see here, we've kind of gone to the centre to spot using our mobility at the start of the game. Then we've kind of circled round down the south, come up here down the sort of 0 and the 9 line, and come up behind all of those enemies that are there, and they had their rear to me, which means that I was able to penetrate them regardless of the poor penetration on the autocannon. So now it's quite a close game. We are down by 3 tanks. I'm going to try and assist any teammates that I see, and as you can see there, I was scanning around to see what tanks were left, but also how much health the enemy tanks were on, and that's a key thing that I find that I do in any battles anyway, but in particular with light tanks, and in particular with the BMP-2. I'm trying to see what tanks I can finish off and what tanks I can go in, and they're isolated, and it means that I'm able to finish them off, just like I'm able to finish off this Arctic Hiss. I knew that he was on low health. I'm able to come round, finish him off, and now I'm using my smoke to get out of dodge and re-stealth and come in from a different position and try and keep them guessing. And I'm just seeing if there's any lone tanks down here in the south that I'm able to isolate. I've seen that this Centurion 9's on just over 400 hit points. I'm able to finish him off with an ATGM very easily, so I'm going to fire on the move right into the rear, no problem penetrating, with a fantastic penetration of these ATGMs. And now I'm going to switch to my APF SDS rounds on this 30mm autocannon to try and help out this friendly FV4211, and because we caused that distraction, we were able to turn that turret of the enemy FV4211, and our friendly FV4211 finished him off. And in retrospect, the best play there would have been to use the ATGM for the rear of the FV4211, because the best penetration, that's more heavily armoured, but it still worked out nonetheless, so I'm happy with that, and we're now up to 6.8k direct damage and 803 assistance damage, and we are still down but only by 2 tanks this time, and the friendly heavies are in a platoon, so I'm hoping that they're coordinating themselves. Well, I noticed that we are getting capped, so I'm going to start heading towards the north, heading towards the northwest, where our cap circle is, and I'm just scanning around to see what tanks are low health and what tanks I might be able to go in and finish off. But as I'm coming up here, this T-72A appears. I put an ATGM into the rear, track that T-72A in place, and then I fire the rounds that I have left with my 30mm autocannon, and then I'm trying to use my mobility now to get out of dodge, get out of the way, re-stealth, and I'm going to try and come in from a different position. Unfortunately, I run into where this T-72AV is, and I'm just trying to avoid their shells, and this is where that low profile, good mobility and concealment comes into play, and this is the reason why I carry the smoke and the reason why I improved my mobility and my concealment, so that I'm able to come round and do things like this, or the intention was to come around and finish the hiss off, but thankfully our friendly finished him off. But now I'm able to fire an ATGM into the side of the T-72A. Unfortunately, we must have hit some of the explosive reactive armour and we only do 300 damage. But we're able to put some good damage in, track him in place, and then we're able to put a few shots in with the 30mm autocannon, and I should be reloading. There we go, I just pressed the reload a little bit later than I should have, but I'm reloading my autocannon, and I actually carry half and half, it looks like here, between the standard APDS rounds and the premium APF SDS rounds. This must have been when I was starting to play the BMP-2 and get a feel for the tank. So now I'm basically trying to keep up these tanks spotted in these buildings here. They are destructible, which means that I can't fire my ATGM through it, but I'm just going to wait for my friendly heavy tanks to come. I've noticed this enemy heavy tank is low health. It looks like it's a bot, so I shouldn't have a problem finishing him off. Unfortunately, I don't have any ATGMs left by the looks of it, so I am just stuck with my 30mm autocannon, but we've done enough damage to help our team mates take this one down by the looks of it, and I'm just going to be a nuisance, and I'm thinking about going in for a ram here to get some extra damage, because I think that my heavy tank should be able to deal with the Conqueror with ease, and I think now I'm not going to reload in time, so I'm going to try and ram and get a little bit of extra damage. Unfortunately, we do no damage. I was hoping to track the tank at least, but we're being friendly given that enemy Conqueror has some extra damage at the end of the game. That's a victory. We finish with 6 kills in the MVP slot, make a small profit. With the Mastery Badge in the BMP-2, we pick up 8.4k direct damage and 1000 assistance. So let's hop over to the third and final replay, and I'll talk you through that one. Right there, we're now into the last replay of the video, and we're here on Desfall, and this map is a very good map like El Alamein for the BMP-2. It's a large open map, meaning that I'm able to get around the battlefield, flank enemies, get some good spotting off, and I should be able to take this one down with the assistance of my team. So at the start of battle, I'm going to head towards the centre of the map and try and get some view range and some vision off at tanks that are heading down that train track and the sort of town location there that is located in sort of C5, C6. As you can see, I'm out spotting even the Scorpion 90 there, and I'm just sitting behind this hard cover, trying to avoid getting shot at by the tanks that like to camp in G9, G0 in that town area. We get a nice 80 GM, and now we're using our autocannon while our 80 GM reloads to decimate these light tanks as they try and escape. And this hiss is going backwards and forwards, but it's no matter. I'm spotting all these tanks up and I'm putting damage in very quickly, and as you can see already we are up to 2.2k assistance and 157 assistance I should say, and 3.1k direct damage. So now I'm just using this rock to stay hidden. I'm trying to rock backwards and forwards just in case someone has a glimpse of me, hoping that they'll miss. I think people are shooting at me or the rear of this FV4211 that is to the side of me, and now I'm getting shots into this Scorpion 90 who is trying to escape. 5 degrees of gun depression here does me dirty, and I just fire at the building or the rock in front of me, but I do reverse out to get a shot at that Scorpion 90, pop some smoke so that I am as hidden as possible. And now I'm going to relocate, and at the start of the battle there we did manage to put some good vision out, although we didn't get as much assistance as I'd like, but we got some good damage out and we did manage to get a few tanks taken out. So now I'm going to head back around the south towards the cap circle on this encounter battle, and I think I'm going to try and head up now to the centre of the map here, the place that I usually like to take at the start of the battle in heavier tanks that have some armour, and even in this light tank when I have mobility and I'm able to escape, but I decided to play it a little bit differently in this battle. So now we're using this location to try and get some view range out towards the north and the east of the map, and we're going to be shooting at things that are spotted in the distance, and we're going to try and get a shell now into this M60A3 on the move. And even though it does have poor shell velocity, we do manage to get a lovely shell there in on the move, picking up 4k direct damage. And while we're reloading, we're just gonna try and pop out at different parts of this sort of raised town location, just so that if anything's looking, hopefully we don't get shot at. I'm hoping by coming down here in these buildings here, I'm able to get shots into the sides of these tanks, like this FV4211 that is located on that train track, and I'm also hoping to spot the tanks that are sitting in that G9, G0 location. Unfortunately, our teammate kind of went our way there. It wasn't his fault, just by accident, but unfortunately we weren't able to control the ATGM, and it means that we did miss the side of the turret of that FE4211. It's now getting to a little bit of a closer battle. We are up by 2 tanks, but I noticed there's this heavy tank that is trying to come up. I'm hoping that he focuses his attention on my friendly light tank, which he does, which means that as he backs up to try and get out of the way of me, we managed to get an ATGM right through his turret with that fantastic ATGM penetration, taking our damage total now to 4.6k damage. And now I see that we outnumber them 2 to 1, so I'm going to use my hit points which I have conserved, and I'm going to go in and try and get as much damage as possible. And I'm making sure that I'm reloading as I am moving. I tried to do some funky Tony Hawk kind of skateboard move there as we head on over towards this little campy location here in G9, G0. This is a great way to advance using these little dips and ridgelines, meaning that they're going to have to overexpose if they want to shoot me, but I don't think that they even know I'm here. And by using my hit points and my ability to get forward at the end of the battle, I'm getting a little bit of spotting there. Unfortunately, it just looks like they did critical damage, but we're going to come up now behind the rear of these tanks, and we're going to get a massive shell into that WZ-122, blowing his head off, ammo-racking that very, very powerful tank, and that just boosts your damage up when you do that kind of thing, and it's very, very satisfying. And that's something that happens more frequently than you'd think because of these ATGMs and the, you know, the massive penetration and the amount of damage and alpha damage that you can do, it means that you are likely to blow people's head off if you aim for the side of turret and that kind of thing where the ammo racks are on different tanks. And that's something that you can do. You can go to the garage, have a look through the different tanks, look at the armor viewer, that kind of thing, and look at the module viewer and see where the ammo racks are. And now we've got our last ATGM. We're going to try and finish off the Conqueror, which we do, and it looked like we blew his head off as well. So 2 ammo racks in one game, absolutely fantastic. We finish with 8.7k direct damage, 321 assistance. We get a mark of excellence, 1689 base experience points, and we make a profit of 123,000 silver. So I hope you enjoyed this review of this BMP-2. It's a very fun tank, and the BMP-3 is as well, which a review will be coming out shortly. So until then, I will see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.